So you need to optimize your environment by being with somebody where you're surrounded by the right people to support you to counter these organizational terrorists.
When you're in a business, they already have this expectation of you. It's harder to change their expectation of you than it is probably to start the business the right way with step number 1.
I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. At the Bold Business Podcast, we are normalizing important conversations. Yes, there are tips. Yes, there are ways to solve problems. More importantly, are going to be, what do you need for yourself to be able to solve those problems and make the most of the education, the training, and the programs that you are already using. This is a supplement to that. It can sit on top of it, fuel your soul, fuel your mind, and most importantly, regardless of where you're at on your journey. Maybe you're starting out. Maybe you're ready to scale. Maybe you're going through a reinvention. The conversations we are having will help you at each of those stages. So hang around, see what's going on, and I look forward to seeing you engaging with our videos.
Wow.
You are listening to the Bold Business Podcast, where you will hear firsthand experiences about what it really takes to ensure market relevance and your company's future.
Michael Barbarita is a CFO at NEXT STEP CFO. And let me tell you, he has been heavily involved in business ownership and now advising and providing financial support services to retail, manufacturing, and service companies of all sizes, sub 1 million plus 50 million. He lives in the northeast part of the United States and once upon a time decided he wanted to go into business with some partners. And so what did he do? At 27, he decided he was going to invest in a ski company, says the person who never skied before. Go, Michael. Didn't know the industry, didn't know what to do, but jumped right in, thought it was a great opportunity. And one of the things that I will tell you that I took away is when the numbers work, you can make better business decisions. That's my number one takeaway. And beyond the number one takeaway, there are 3 things that also come out of our conversation that are worth noting. So as you're listening, you can hear them as well. The first is that there are 5 critical steps to make any business work. And he describes them. And we actually talk a lot. The basis of our entire conversation comes from those 5 critical steps. My biggest takeaway was when the numbers worked, they work and you can make better business decisions. That is something that you will hear throughout the conversation as well. And the third thing that I know you will take away and to listen for, Michael shared the skill he wished he knew at the beginning of his entrepreneur business ownership journey that he knows now and brings not only to his own businesses, but also to those he serves. I have to tell you, whether it's frozen cookie dough, whether it was the ski company, whether it's being the 5 different companies he's served on the board of directors, whether it's him and his co-author of his book, Powerful Business Strategies, he's bringing practical, real advice, and he shared what he's learned over his years of business with us today. I hope you enjoy the conversation that Michael and I have. Michael, what's something that's been on your heart lately when it comes to your work and your profession?
Being a business owner is not easy, as you probably know. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hours, a lot of effort, a lot of heartache, a lot of joy and thrill. We're in the business of helping business owners get the life that they want. Business owners aren't hiring me for CFO services or strategic implementation. They're hiring me to improve their life, whatever way that be. Now, granted, the business is one of the ways that is the conduit for them to improve their life, but they hire me to improve their life. And so what's on my heart every day is improving business owners' lives.
Really, the way to do that is what? Be in business, stay in business. So we're talking about profit. Is that the core piece of where you're at, or do you also work on other things?
It is. Obviously, that's the centerpiece. It's always about making more money, but it's also about making sure that the business owner is being replaced because that really adds value to the business. And that the business owner is not working 80 hours a week, that they have their policies, procedures in place. It's streamlined. They have their people in place and their people plan. And so it's about really every aspect of the business that we deal with. Even though we're CFOs, there's no question about it, but We're strategic CFOs and we deal with business strategy. And that's why we wrote the book, Powerful Business Strategies, because we wanted to make sure we really understood what business strategy is and how to implement it.
Everything has a strategy. So instead of having a strategic plan that is a strategy to execute toward this mission, right? Everything falls in line. Every strategy has a strategy, and those strategies have strategies. So how do you help people understand and weed out what strategy do you really need?
If they have a sales problem, there's strategies for that. If they have a problem getting leads, there's a strategy for that. If they have a problem retaining customers, there's a strategy for that. If they have a problem with conversions and closing rates, there's a strategy for that. They have a problem with average dollar per sale, there's a strategy for that. For frequency of sale, there's a strategy for that. For controlling their costs, there's a strategy for that. So it depends upon, and by the way, some of them need all seven. I call it the 7-step pathway to profit formula, what I just described there. Leads, conversions, closing rates, client retention, average dollar per sale, frequency of sale, and controlling your costs. If you're focused on these 7 steps, and by the way, if you are focused on these 7 steps, this will drive 80% of your revenue. So it's these 7 steps, if you're focused on now, and so business owners come to me and they might be strong getting leads. Okay, so then we go to the next step, which is conversions, getting people into their sales process. Then we go to closing rates. So we go down the line, and it's usually one or more of those 7 areas they need help with.
So, sure, we have these strategies and we have places where we're struggling now. And we also recognize if we're not looking forward, we're going to just keep struggling and we might accidentally get stuck in the same problem we have today. So, how do you take these strategies for each of these 7 areas and how do you align those to a bigger strategy? This is the way we make money. Here's the way we need to change to stay competitive. Where are we at in the disruption curve of the life cycle of our industry within the bigger realm? And how can we prepare for that?
For each strategy, we have a step-by-step roadmap. And so if the strategy is to get more leads, we have a step-by-step roadmap to get more leads. So it once you if you can accomplish these 7 areas and you can figure out how to master these 7 areas, then with respect, then everything, essentially everything will flow profitably. And not only that, you'll increase the value of the business. You'll also be able to work less hours. All of that, it's all integrated as we see it into those 7 areas. And each of those 7 areas has multiple strategies potentially, or just one strategy, but some of them have multiple strategies and each of those strategies has a step-by-step roadmap.
And these are operational strategies. Yeah.
Whether you work with me or someone else, there are actually 5 critical steps that you need to take in order to make anything work. Any type of consultant or any type of business coach, there's 5 steps essentially. And if that business coach or consultant or CFO or whoever it is that you're working with to try to get support on your P&L and your business life, it has to include all 5 of these steps. And the first step is clarity. Because before you can start to do tactical things, you must strategically understand, why am I doing this? Where am I going? And what does success look like for me? But not in your business, in your life. Because I've seen this mistake happen over and over again. And a lot of people listening might be in the exact same position right now where they're so excited to make their impact in the world that they jump out there and they create a business. And now all of a sudden you have to fit your life around this business thing that you created. So the way it should work is that you should create the life you want and let the asset, which is the business, serve you, allowing you to get to that life. That's clarity.
Did you say like everybody? Because I thought you said there are people, and I'm going to just go out there and say the first business that anybody ever does, it's like that. And if you know where from it, you do it 3 or 4 times.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I appreciate this being the first step, Michael. That's the truth.
That's
I've been
just the
there.
first step, right?
Yeah. Uh huh.
The second step is that step-by-step roadmap I talked about. You have to have an actual, so each strategy or each strategy that you attempt to implement has to have a step-by-step roadmap. And if that, because otherwise you don't know where you go, you don't know how to go about implementing the strategy if you don't have a step-by-step roadmap. You have to understand what it is and what that roadmap is so that you can allocate the time, so that you can allocate resources and whatever is necessary to make that strategy work. So that's two, and that's step-by-step roadmap. The third step is you have to upgrade your skills. Now, everybody needs a skills upgrade. When I was in the ski business, and that's one of the businesses I owned early on, was a ski retail business. One of the things that I implemented was a strategy called a risk reversal, where the seller in the transaction takes most or all the risk. Now, the problem the customer had in the ski industry is they really never knew if the ski they were being sold was the right ski for them until they took it up on the mountain and tried it out. So we implemented what we called a ski guarantee. Ski to ski 3 times. If you don't like it, bring it back for a brand new pair and keep bringing it back until we get it right. And so when I presented this to my managers, they thought I was out of my mind. They thought that there were going to be thousands of pair of skis coming back from the field. And they thought that we were going to lose a ton of money. And my philosophy on it is that all the skier wants was a great ski experience. Sure, there'll be some customers that might take advantage of it to the nth degree and come back and come back and come back. But for the most part, the skier just wanted a great ski experience. We sold 8,000 pair of skis the first year we implemented, a 25% increase from the year before, and only 8 came back. Next year, we sold 11,000 pair, 14 came back. This was part of a skills upgrade because when you really understand what a customer wants and what problems that they have, you can better understand. It gives you the skill to understand that a thing like a risk reversal will work if you understand what the problem is that the customer had. Because the customer is not out to put one over on you. Sure, they could do it. And some
We have other things to do. We're designing our business around our life instead of the other way around.
That's right. And here's the thing. So if a customer came back into the store and said, these skis stink, guess what I did? I gave them a new salesperson and they would give them a new pair of skis, no charge. Okay. So all I did was put it in my offer to make my offer compelling. I'm going to do it anyway. So you might as well make your offer. That's part of a skills upgrade. So that's step 3. Step 4 is master your psychology. So what it took for you to start your business and what it takes to grow your business requires a totally different mindset. So the business can't grow unless you do. Now, remember my employees' mindset on that risk reversal? Thousands of pair of skis are going to come back and we're going to lose a ton of money. That didn't happen because you need to have the right mindset to see things the right way. And then 5th is optimize your environment. We have, all of us as business owners, we have saboteurs or organizational terrorists, as I call them. It's normally family and friends, by the way, the ones who constantly questioning what you're doing. So you need to optimize your environment by being with somebody or some buddies, whether it's a group or whether it's a one-on-one situation, where you're surrounded by the right people to support you to counter these organizational terrorists, because they're out there and they're going to always question what you're doing or saying that you can't do it. Or sometimes it's a spouse, sometimes it's just family and friends. It's out there.
Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. I thrive on your feedback and engagement. You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Jess Duell. This is your program for strategizing long-term success while diving deep into what the right work is for your business right now.
You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, hosted by Jess Duell, a nationally recognized strategic growth consultant. She works with business owners and executives to integrate just 2 elements that guide business through the ups and downs of growth. Number 1, know what work is necessary. Number 2, Do all the work possible. Schedule a complimentary consultation to find out more at reddirection.com.
There are a lot of family businesses out there. And so to just recognize that exists, I know people don't, if you didn't grow up in a small town, which I did not, so I'm speaking from secondhand experience here, Michael, from one of my very close lifelong friends who has. And she goes, everybody thinks I'm still 13 years old sometimes. And that's just what's going on in the town. And so when you're in a business, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your children, whether it's your parents, whether it's your extended family, they already have this expectation of you. And it's harder to change their expectation of you than it is probably to start the business the right way with step number one. And so I want to bring that up because I can tell you from having one of my businesses be very integral with my spouse that the saboteur wasn't necessarily us against each other from our perspectives. We were acquired. And in that acquisition, we had two different departments over each of our areas of the business, and they had competing priorities, which meant we had competing priorities, which meant the business unit that we were in was always under pressure. And I said family business as a segue in, but we were working together as a partnered pair, but we also had that external piece of other people and a bigger vision that didn't align. And so they can be, and I'm bringing that in because people are like, oh, it's a family business. This is always the case. Yes, and. Or, oh, it's always a business thing. And you don't know, nobody knows what they're doing. And there's a whole bunch of silos. Yes, and. Because just like family, people who've worked together for 20 years, while not familiar in that tie of relationship, business relationships exist and they last. And boy, can people get entrenched in those. And so I really appreciate that understanding and the optimization of the environment and the relationships that exist there.
And it doesn't have to be a family business because it could just be a spouse. There are many spouses out there don't understand business ownership. They understand W-2. They understand W-2. And so when a business owner is working 80 hours a week and making less than the spouse who's working 40, the spouse comes to question that. And that's the part of the saboteur or the organizational terrorist that's impacting this person's mind, the other spouse's mindset.
Okay, so the external viewpoints that are influential.
That's right.
Give me some steps to overcome that because if you don't understand, because here's the last thing you don't want to do, right? So you've got stuff over here and this is where we are. Then we go home to somebody who doesn't understand us or doesn't really understand the mindset and doesn't understand what's actually happening. How do you bridge some of that? I bet you have some good ideas.
What we've done always is we've always put people in a supportive environment, whether it's a group environment, because some people need that. See, some people can deal with the one-on-one environment and be able to counter the organizational terrorists. Okay, because they have somebody they could go to who understands. They have someone who they could go to who understands. Okay, and because of that, it's a support mechanism. And then there's those people who need the group. They need 5 or 6 people who understand that kind of environment, where whether it's a group coaching environment or whether it's working with their own multiple consultants like a CPA and let's say a business coach and a CFO and those types. But when we recognize that somebody needs more than one, we put them in a group program, because that allows them to really get it and to really have that support that they need.
What was that tipping point for you to go, I need somebody a little like me that can relate?
When I owned the ski business that I talked about earlier, I was 27. I could tell right away that employees didn't have the same passion for the business that I had. I've never been married, so I wasn't married at the time, obviously, but my family didn't understand when I couldn't go to family events, and they would put a lot of pressure on me. And then I started to talk to other business owners in, let's say, networking groups or the chamber groups and that type of thing, and they were encountering the same issues. And that was my support mechanism at the time, because I didn't realize you don't realize what's happening.
Accidentally found your way in, which is great. because you didn't know what you needed, but because of the effort that was being done, the right thing showed up. I'm a big believer in that, by the way. It might be the right thing at the wrong time, but it could also be the right thing at the right time, even if it feels like a disruption of everything.
But if you don't have that kind of support, that's why these 5 steps are so critical. Because if you, like in the last one, if you don't have that type of support, it's going to be hard for you to implement a strategy because your psychology is somewhere else. That's why we think it's clarity, step-by-step roadmap, skills upgrade, master your psychology, optimize your environment. Whether you work with me or someone else, they must incorporate these 5 steps.
Mastering your psychology a little more.
In order to go from being a thousandaire, meaning a couple thousand in sales,
I love that thousandaire. Yeah.
to 250,000 in sales, it requires a different mindset. The mindset that brought you, let's put it this way, the mindset that brings you to 50,000 in sales is a totally different mindset to bring you to 250. You've got to do, you got to think about things differently and how you're going to handle that extra volume. And then from 250 to a million, again, it takes a different mindset. And some people get stuck at 400,000, 300,000, 250,000, 500,000. They get stuck there because they don't know, they don't have the mindset necessary to go beyond that. See, there's a mindset that goes along with building a business. And those mindsets have to change at different levels. If you take every business owner when they started, how they went about it. Me, I was cold calling.
I still do that once in a while. I'm like, "Ooh, this is the business I wanna know," cold outreach, I guess. How do I get into the same place that this business is that I want to know, that I'd like to work with?
But then at certain levels of volume, when you start hiring people, you start building sales, that strategy isn't as productive anymore.
I'm gonna pause because I think I can expand on what you're saying. Because so I'm like, "Oh, I pick and choose. I want to go be where that company is because I want to meet that company versus I'm going to talk to as many companies as I can so that I can at least have revenue." So I wanted to go back one step because what you said next, I was like, oh, let's clarify that yeah.
Yeah. You see, the latter that you said, where you call everybody and anybody, that's a particular mindset at the beginning. But as you develop, now you're becoming more focused, more strategic in your approach. And now you only pick companies you want to work with.
That's right.
That's a
That's
different
right.
mindset.
Total different mindset. And that's as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, wait, but we got to clarify where we started. Cause like you're right. I'm like, I did that. And now I have a variation of that. But you're right. There are and people call it scale. And it's really interesting because I'm a big focused person on scale, and I know everything tends to translate to revenue, and that's something where I'm not focused on, Michael. I know we need profit. I know we've got the levers to make profit, but sometimes scaling doesn't look like more money as the first step. It's the result.
That also requires a mindset shift
Yes.
because you have to be able to deal with the investment that you're making. You have to be able to deal with that. You have to be able to sleep at night with that.
I want to know a story of yours where you totally put yourself out there in the riskiest thing you've ever done as a business owner or that you've suggested to a business owner in all of your years of experience that was this leap of mindset. And I'm picking risk on purpose because it's something that could be relatable. And I know we all have a risk tolerance. And so some of us might get oh, super anxious about what you say. But some of us might be like, oh, I didn't even know that was risky. And look at how I can celebrate this. And either way, there's a path forward, right?
I'm 27 years old and I'm ready to buy this business with some partners. And we had to borrow money at 25% interest plus borrow money from credit cards in order to do it. But because I was a financial guy, I could figure out the numbers and the numbers worked. They worked. So the interest rate was 25. I would pay, everything's about terms. Everything's about terms. I don't know what your business is, but I'll pay $10 million for your business if I could pay $1 a month for 10 million months. The point is that terms can make a big difference. And that's what I learned from that, even though I didn't know it when I was doing it. Okay. Because although I had MasterCard and Visa, all right, money going in, although I had a personal loan at 25% interest, that didn't matter because the numbers worked because of the terms I got. And I never skied before. So this was a giant leap. I didn't know anything about the business at all, obviously. And then I was going to go into debt up to my eyeballs. I was going to make a very small salary as a result, but I was willing to make that commitment because the numbers worked. And I thought if I was able to increase business, the company had certain assets that I thought they weren't taking advantage of. And so I did it and it worked out really great.
A lot of business owners, when they go and they jump in and they have clarity about what they want to do, but not how they're actually going to be able to do it around the life that they already have. Your step number one. So I'm going to pull that in and I'm going to think about this and where we're talking about that mindset piece, which is your step four. And you keep saying the numbers worked. And here's something that I am not a numbers person. I read the data, I can ask for questions and understand what should be on the data, but I can't make the data with which to work with. And I know and some people are like because I can't do that, I'm not a numbers person. And I disagree with that. I have a decent amount of financial knowledge even though I can't make the spreadsheet. If you would ask me, could you make a spreadsheet about this? I'd be like, "No, but I could tell you if it was right." Okay, so there's something, but then there are people out there they don't even know about the numbers, they don't understand any of that. They've got their basic P&L or they're working with the most basic information in their business, which gets in the way of the mindset of how much we can grow, but it's also a confidence thing, and I think people are more aware of numbers and they have a pulse that they don't give themselves credit for unless they're a CFO. Can I be real? And so, do you have some advice or some tips to really focus on some of that? If the numbers work, why not try? Or if the numbers work, how do you evaluate it? And how can we claim it? Because if we've successfully been in business for 3 to 5 years, we got to know something about numbers, whether believe we can or not. And then when you get to those next revenue plateaus and go through them, you know something about numbers, even if you're not grasping onto it. So, what advice can you give us?
If I'm doing a presentation and I ask how many people look at their P&L once a month, less than half the room raises their hand. If I, yeah, if when I ask how many people look at their balance sheet once a month, about 10% of the people raise their hand. And if I ask them how many people look at their cash flow statement once a month, I might get one person to raise their hand. And so now cash flow is the lifeblood of a business. So what I've done is I ask business owners who don't really want to get into deeply into the numbers. First of all, you should have some type of financial person that's available. That's available because a lot of people say I have my CPA, but try to reach them, from February 15th to May 1st. Try to reach them from July 15th to October 4th.
Outside of your quarterly meetings with them.
Yeah,
Let's just say
that's
that,
right.
right?
It's
Yeah.
it's hard, right?
It's hard. And no offense to them, that just happens to be how their business is. And so if we can do that, who else could we have in our corner?
No one's going in that profession because the hours are heck. The hours are terrible. And so no one's going into the profession and people are retiring. And so, woo, it's getting shaky over there. But anyway,
And but you're right. And some people then go, here's my bookkeeper who does all my reconciliation. And that's also good to a point because that person sometimes may have the ability to ask questions or shape some things. But in general, when we're talking about growth, when we're talking about next moves, when we're talking about evaluating an acquisition or maybe research and development or anything like that, we've got to have somebody. And even if we have a controller, might be good to bring in a third person who's a little distance from all the data to be able to ask really good questions.
there's no question. You have to understand what your financial statements are telling you. Okay. And so you do need to get somebody to help you. However, I do have a shortcut that, yeah, is at least it's at least better than what they're doing now. And I call it the vital five. If you know these five numbers, okay, then and how they work, then you're pretty much able to make better business decisions. You're not able to make the best because you don't know what your financial statements are telling you, but you're able to make better business decisions. Number one is sales. You've got to know what your sales is. Gross profit. All right. Need to know once a month, at least, my God, what your gross profit is and your gross profit percent. So it's sales, gross profit in absolute dollars, gross profit percent, net profit, and your current cash balance. If you know those five numbers, you can make better business decisions. Just those five numbers. Focus on learning those five numbers. That's all it is, five numbers. And I say you can make better business decisions. That's sales, gross profit percent, net profit, and cash, your current cash balance.
I'm your host, Jess Duell, and we're getting down to business on the Bold Business Podcast. This is where we're tackling the challenges that matter most to you with actionable and achievable advice to get real results that lead to your success. Don't forget, press that bell icon so you never miss a program. And it's time to subscribe as well.
Focused on growth? Listen to more programs like this which support the challenges and opportunities you are working with right now. Come on! Search Bold Business Podcast for the key terms at reddirection.com or your preferred podcast listening app.
Here I am going, I can read all of the numbers that you would give me, Michael. We could have a discussion about a company I don't know based off of financial stuff you get. And those would be the five things that I'd be looking at as a starting point. So I'm like, heck, who knew? So everybody that's listening, you might even be using this too. And you already are making pretty good business decisions, which means there should be more confidence. And oh, I said should. So hang on. How could I rephrase that? You have the ability to walk into a conversation about what becomes possible with more confidence because of that. And now you have that foundation to go, I know something. Now let's learn more. Because then you get to go to what skills do I need? How do I change my mindset? What are the environment things that I need to change? So that's where I was going with that, Michael, is how do we claim that confidence a little?
Those five steps. I mean, because if you understand where you're going, okay, and you understand and you have a step-by-step roadmap to follow, and you improve your skills along the way, because the step-by-step roadmap helps you to improve your skills because it's challenging. It challenges you. It's not cupcake. It challenges you. Those steps challenge you. And then mastering your psychology is understanding what those steps, what they're driving you to do. Okay, which is different from what you've been doing. And then it's the organizational terrorists that you have to counter.
All of these things are great and we can follow those. And yet I'm still like experiencing my body. I'm like, ooh. But if we think we're doing it and we're not really, we're going to stay stuck. And then we're going to be like, I don't believe Michael because what he said didn't work. And that just means we haven't fully embraced what you're saying.
It takes time to shift the mindset.
Okay, let's talk about that. What's your experience for that? Let's say, give us an example. Like somebody reaches $500,000 and they're trying to get to $1 million. Okay. And they know that they have to change, and they've been trying to change, but they're not. Do you have an example in that realm where we could pick that apart and say what was being disguised as actually checked off in your steps, but really weren't?
When we're working on somebody to master their psychology, we're just trying to get their mind. And by the way, mindset growth is a step-by-step roadmap
Oh, totally.
in
Yeah.
itself. In
Yeah.
itself. Because you don't see something right now, doesn't mean you won't see it later on. And that's really the important thing. You know, if I hold up a card and I just pick a card here, you could see the card.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't. Okay.
Yeah. I see.
But what I see is totally different because I'm looking at the back of the card.
Right.
Basically, mindset is you can't see it today, but it's there. And it takes time to really understand whether or not or how to get to that mindset that's going to take you from 500,000 to 1 million, million to 2 to 10, whatever it is that you need, because it is a different mindset. There's no question about it.
Sometimes we hit those milestones and we don't even know we've arrived. Sometimes we've done the learning, we look back, we decide to do it differently than we did before, and we get a better result. And we're like, cool, that worked. But we forget the time we tried and it didn't work. But we forget the time that we recognized we needed something new and we didn't know. And it's by working with an outside set of eyes like you and me that can help call that out for people so they know that they're actually arriving where they want to go, and they aren't traveling, I guess. If you change the degree of your flight plan by one, you end up in a whole different country or place in the universe if you're in a spacecraft. I think that's an important thing to recognize. Oh, I'm actually still on the right path. I'm in the vicinity of where I want to be. And it's hard to see sometimes, even in peer groups, because they don't necessarily know our business as well. We can relate, we can talk, but we also need somebody that could go, hey, did you know you did that cool thing?
What mastering psychology means to me is helping you get to levels that right now you can't see. And it's like the winning level is what I can see back here. You can't see it because I'm only showing you the front, but that's what you can see. Okay. You can't see the winning formula.
And you don't know if you're the boss of the level yet to pass to get to the end of the game, do you?
That's right.
Remind me the name of your book.
Powerful business strategies.
Looking back, what is the skill that you bring to the table for where you're at today that you had to learn? And you can look back and go, whew, everything would have been way different if I had known this at the beginning.
That's what we call the conversion formula. And that's what's in our book, and I'll explain it. And by the way, we give away our book. We don't sell it. It's like our contribution to the business community because I co-authored the book, and I co-authored the book because I wanted to learn business strategy more in depth. And so it took 2 or 3 years for me to study it and do the research for the book. And we're still interviewing business. We still keep writing additional additions to the book because business is always changing. And so we're always interviewing small business owners to learn more about their industry and the problems that they have in their industry and so forth. But the thing that I've learned that I wish I knew back when was this concept called the conversion formula. And what it does is it's a 4-step formula that converts prospects into a conversion event, whether it be a meeting or whether it be an actual sale itself. And it's a 4-step process that, like any other formula, it has to be followed in the exact order. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And the way I discovered it was back in 1931.
Wait a second. You weren't around in 1931. I love this the way you started this conversation. Hey, wait. Okay, this is part of your research. I got you, Michael.
I had to go back 90 years to figure this out.
But that's actually cool. It exists already, right? And 90 years ago.
90 years ago, somebody said, you have to get into the mind of the prospect. Okay, that you have to get in the mind of the prospect. So the way I saw that is that to get into the mind of the prospect, it's going to be based on emotional issues, and specifically 2 emotional issues. And that's the problem they have that don't want, the solution they want they can't find. And people buy based on emotion and back up that emotion logically. And I want to explain how the conversion formula follows that track. So the conversion formula starts with something I call captivate. That's the first step. Captivate is a headline. It's the first thing that should come out of your mouth when somebody asks you what you do. It's the first thing that come out that should be presented, whether it's an email headline or whether it's a marketing headline of some sort, social media, whatever it is. But the captivate is the headline, and that headline is the problem that the prospect has that they do not want. And that's what that headline is. Probably one of the more famous headlines is, and positions of market dominance, as I call them, is dominance, where they had to, the problem was that the hungry college kids had to get to their next class and, or wanted, when they were hungry, they wanted to eat now. And so they made a guarantee about 30 minutes. And if it doesn't arrive in 30 minutes, it's free. So that was a position of market dominance based on a problem that a subset or a set of prospects had that they didn't want. Now, so the captivate is the first step. The next step is fascinate, which is the solution to the problem that they can't find. When you have, so the captivate and the fascinate, the problem and the solution is what I call the position of market dominance. Because if you get those first two steps, you're well on your way. And so the first step is captivate, the problem they have they don't want. The second is fascinate, the solution they want they can't find. The third step is educate. Now that you've captivated and fascinated, you've got their attention, you now have a little bit more time to educate them on how you go about solving that problem. And then you have to hit them with the offer, which is the close. It has to be a compelling offer, and I'll go into that. But it has to be a compelling offer. So the way it works is the captivate and the fascinate are the emotional issues, the problem and the solution. The educate is the logical. If one spouse was trying to explain to another spouse why they purchased a particular product, they would use the educate. But it was the emotional problem solution that got them interested in the product in the first place. So it's captivate, fascinate, educate, close. Now, your compelling offer. There are 5 components to a compelling offer. One of them I mentioned earlier. But those 5 components is urgency and scarcity. So urgency is this offer ends on Friday. Scarcity is there's only 5 left. And by the way, if your offer has all 5 of these components, it's better than just having 1 or 2. The second component of a compelling offer is risk reversal. If you recall, that's what I did in the ski business, where the problem the customer had, and notice I said the problem the customer had was they didn't really know if the ski that was being sold was the right ski for them until they tried it out in the mountain. So risk reversal is a second part where the seller in the transaction takes most or all the risk. Third is adding more value to your product or service. When I was in the frozen cookie dough business, the problem that the customer had is they didn't want to waste valuable oven space baking cookies. They wanted to put in that space pizza if they were a pizza parlor, or subs if they were heating up stuff, and that type of thing. They didn't want to waste valuable oven space baking pizza. So what we did, we understood the long-term value of a customer, which is a very important metric to understand, by the way. Yeah. And so we understood that the long-term value of a customer in our business was $5,000. Once somebody ordered something, they would probably end up spending $5,000 over the course of their cookie purchasing career. So,
I love this.
yeah. So what we did is we gave them a free convection oven with every opening order. Now, the opening order was only $50 to $100, but the convection oven was $200, $250. So we'd lose money on the first couple of orders, but we knew the long-term value of a customer. And so we knew that over time, we would make that money up very easily.
The numbers worked. I'm going to quote you. I'm going to quote you. Oh, I love this.
And it solved the problem that they had that didn't want, which was putting cookies in the main oven.
So I'm going to pop at this. It seems like we've been in business for a while. We figured out how to keep the lights on. Most of the people that are listening to this program are in that boat, right? They have hit their first growth ceiling, maybe their second. Or maybe they've been around for a while and they're thinking about, what do I want to do next? How does this evolve? Maybe I'm tired of working 80 hours a week. Whatever it is, they're all listening for their own reason, and they've hit some sort of a plateau here. And something that I find fascinating is that just in this conversation is that I'm going to just go out of my way and say, I believe every single person that is listening and watching this is, oh yeah, oh yeah. So every time that you've said, oh yeah, I hope you took a note. I hope you bookmark the timestamp, whatever you need to do to go back, because these are things you already know and that you can leverage more. That's what we're doing on the Bold Business Podcast. And I really just want to say that right now because Michael has dropped us tons of valuable information. And you're going to go, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. I'm a little more confident than I was at the beginning of this conversation about how I run my business. So who knew? And I'm saying that slightly cheeky. So for all of those listening, I know you might think this too, but really claim it for a second because we do not give ourselves enough credit sometimes as business owners. We do not give ourselves enough credit as achievers. And I really want to say, whatever we're saying, oh yeah, to, that is the foundation with which our success has happened, which means we already have the momentum to go get that next success.
Fantastic. That was fantastic. My God. Just right there. There's an
Done. Mic drop. No, but we have one more. I have one more question for you, and that is I want to know what makes it bold. I want to know what makes it bold to really invest in all of the things that we've talked about to make better business decisions.
You have to know yourself, first of all. And you have to know whether or not, let's say, you're coachable or that you're flexible. Here it is. One of the biggest attributes that a business owner can have, in my opinion, is being the ability to adapt and to be flexible to change. Whether it's the ability to adapt to an economic environment or the ability to adapt to a new idea and to hear that idea, like the conversion formula, for example, just to throw one out, that idea. Do you have the ability to adapt? Because in all likelihood, you're not doing it now. So do you have the ability to adapt and to be flexible to change? And if you have that ability to adapt, that's the boldness that I feel that one needs. That's the boldness, is the ability to adapt and to be flexible to change. Because if you have that ability to adapt and be flexible to change, number one, you're going to succeed in any economic environment. And number two, you're going to be able to take new ideas and run with them. A lot of us are stuck in our ways. We're not flexible. We'd sign a contract with God to be able to do the same sales volume every single year. That's not being flexible. That's not being adaptable.
Every single time I have a conversation, I take away something that I want to share with 25 people. I know when you're listening to this podcast, you're also listening for that and will have something that you want to share. In the comments, I would like for you to engage with us. What is that thing that you want to tell 25 people from this program? Here's why it's important. It's important because, yeah, there are going to be how-tos. Yes, there are going to be steps. Yes, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I wrote that down. I wish I wasn't doing this and I could actually take action on that right now. But guess what? You're not. So engage right now, because that one thing you want to share with others will be the thing that you can figure out how to incorporate in your business, in your workflow, in your style